Welcome everyone to Singapore Property Talk Law. So glad you could join us.
Great to be here.
We're diving into another fascinating topic today. Before we really get started, just a quick reminder, do like this deep dive and subscribe to the channel. That way you won't miss out on any of our latest insights.
Definitely helps us out.
Okay, so today we're tackling a story that, well, it's really captured a lot of attention here in Singapore. We're talking about the recent outcome of billionaire property tycoon Ong Beng Seng's case. It involves, some surprising details, a hefty fine, and this legal concept that maybe not everyone's familiar with judicial mercy.
That's the key part, really.
Right. So our mission today is to unpack all the important bits, understand the timeline, how things unfolded, and really explore why this particular outcome happened.
Exactly. It's not just about the headline figure of the fine. It's about digging into the legal reasoning, the nuances, the specific circumstances that led the court to its decision. We'll try and connect those dots for you.
Perfect. So let's start with that headline figure, the big reveal. On August 15th, Ong Beng Seng, he's 79, was fined $30,000.
Yep.
And this was for abetting the obstruction of justice. It's all linked to that case involving former Transport Minister Iswaran.
And it's important to note that $30,000 fine, that was actually the maximum the district court could impose for this specific offense.
Ah, okay. That's a key detail. And he'd already pleaded guilty earlier, right, on August 4th.
That's correct, yes. He entered a guilty plea then.
Now, there was some interesting detail about his reaction in court. Apparently, he just looked straight ahead when the sentence is read out. No real reaction.
Sort of stoic, according to the reports. But then afterwards, he apparently gave a thumbs up to one of his lawyers.
And was seen signing something that looked like a checkbook later on. It paints a picture, doesn't it?
It does. Little moments that observers picked up on.
Okay, so let's unpack this fine versus the charge. $30,000 for abetting obstruction of justice. This is where it gets really interesting, I think. The sources are very clear. The judge agreed that judicial mercy should be exercised here. And the reason? Ong's ill health.
Yes. That was the absolute crux of the decision regarding jail time.
So, what exactly is judicial mercy in Singapore's legal context? How often does it come up?
Well, it's a discretionary power the courts have. It lets them impose a more lenient sentence than usual, but only when there are exceptional mitigating circumstances. It's really a high threshold to meet, not common.
Exceptional circumstances. And in this case, the sources mention a devastating cocktail of medical problems.
That sounds incredibly serious.
It is. The judge specifically noted Ong suffers from advanced multiple myeloma. That's an incurable cancer of plasma cells diagnosed back in 2020.
Okay.
And his lawyers presented quite detailed evidence, things like a hollowed-out spinal vertebrae from the cancer, a metal rod in his spine that carries infection risk, severe and persistent, digestive issues, peripheral vascular disease in both feet, including a non-healing wound, and significantly a high risk of falls. It's a very serious list of ailments. And how did this translate directly into the sentence? Did the judge spell out the connection?
Oh, absolutely. Very explicitly. The judge stated, and I'm quoting the essence here, that a sentence of imprisonment would carry a high and increased risk of endangering his life.
Endangering his life. That's strong language.
Very. The court found the infection risk would jump significantly in prison, unavoidable interactions. And the risk of falls in an unfamiliar place without his usual support network would be much higher.
And this wasn't just the defense arguing this.
No. Critically, both the prosecution and the defense actually agreed that jail time would endanger his life. That consensus was likely very significant for the judge.
Okay, that really clarifies the judicial mercy angle. So, taking that factor out for a moment, if he hadn't had these severe health issues, what would the sentence have been?
The judge addressed that directly, too. She indicated that without the medical condition, the appropriate sentence would have been 3 months jail.
3 months, okay.
And the prosecution, for their part, had suggested that ordinarily 8 weeks imprisonment would have been warranted.
So we're talking a definite jail term, maybe 2 to 3 months, completely taken off the table because of the health risks?
Precisely. It really underscores just how central his medical state was to the final outcome. It wasn't a minor consideration. It fundamentally changed the sentence from custodial to a fine.
Right. Now let's backtrack a bit and get into the specifics of the offense itself. How did this whole situation involving the former minister, Iswaran, actually unfold? Where did the obstruction part come in?
Okay, so it starts back in December 2022. Ong Beng Seng invited Mr. Iswaran to Qatar. This was for the World Cup.
Right, I remember that being reported.
And Ong offered to cover all the expenses. That included travel on Ong's private jet and the hotel stay.
And Mr. Iswaran accepted this invitation.
Yes, he did. So on December 10th, 2022, Mr. Iswaran flew to Doha on Ong's jet. That flight alone was valued at about US $7,700, so around $7,400. He stayed one night at the Four Seasons Hotel that cost about $4,700. Then he flew back to Singapore, but on a commercial business class flight valued at $5,700.
And who paid for the hotel and the return flight? Not Ong personally?
Those costs, the hotel and the return flight, were covered by Singapore GPP Ltd. That's the company where Ong is the majority shareholder, the F1 race promoter.
Got it. So that's the background. When did the obstruction of justice element actually happen?
That comes later, in May 2023. The CPI, the Corrupt Practices Investigation Bureau, they were looking into a completely separate matter, something involving Ong's associates.
Okay, so not directly related initially.
Correct. But during that investigation, they came across the flight manifest for that private jet trip to Doha that Mr. Iswaran had taken back in December.
Ah, okay. And somehow Ong found out CPI had this.
Yes. On May 18th, his associates told him CPI had seized the manifest.
What did he do then?
He then called Mr. Iswaran to let him know about this development.
Right, and this is the crucial moment.
This seems to be it. Because it was during that call, according to the facts, that Mr. Iswaran asked Ong to arrange for Singapore GP to bill him for that Doha trip, the hotel, and the return flight.
I see. So asking to be billed after finding out CPI was looking into it.
Exactly. And Ong agreed and arranged for Singapore GP to send an invoice to Mr. Iswaran.
And how did the prosecution frame that? Why was arranging that invoice considered obstructing justice?
The prosecution's argument was that this act, Mr. Iswaran paying for the flight and hotel after knowing CPI had the manifest had a tendency to obstruct the course of justice.
How so?
Because it would make it look like it wasn't a gift or a benefit received, potentially making it less likely that Iswaran would be investigated further for that specific trip. And the prosecution stated Ong was aware that facilitating this billing was likely to obstruct justice. He knew what was going on.
Right, creating a paper trail after the fact, essentially.
That seems to be the implication, yes.
And this case is, of course, closely tied to Mr. Iswaran's own legal proceedings. Can you remind us briefly of that connection?
Sure. Mr. Iswaran was sentenced back on October 3rd, 2024. He received 12 months jail. This was after he pleaded guilty to 5 charges, 4 of which involved obtaining valuable things while he was a public servant.
And one of those charges related directly to this Doha trip obstruction.
Yes, one of his charges was for obstructing justice, specifically in relation to this act of getting billed for the Doha trip.
Okay, so they both faced charges over the same incident. How did the judge assess their respective culpability? Was Ong seen as less responsible than Iswaran in this particular instance?
That's a really important distinction the judge made. She noted that in Mr. Iswaran's case, the High Court had determined the starting point sentence for his obstruction charge should be 18 weeks jail.
18 weeks. Okay,
But
crucially.
because it was Mr. Iswaran who asked for the bill, he initiated the specific obstructive act. The judge found Ong Beng Seng's culpability in abetting that act was lower.
The instigator versus the facilitator?
Essentially, yes. So the judge found Ong's appropriate starting sentence, if you ignore the judicial mercy aspect for a moment, would have been 15 weeks jail, slightly less than Iswaran's starting point for the main offense.
15 weeks. Still significant jail time pre-judicial mercy.
Absolutely. It shows the seriousness with which the abetment was still viewed, just slightly less than the main act itself.
Now, Ong's lawyers also brought up his character, his contributions to Singapore, like bringing the F1 here. Did that play any role in the sentencing? Did it help his case?
They definitely raised those points, highlighting his positive impact on Singapore over the years.
And the judge's take?
The judge acknowledged his contributions, yes.
Yeah.
But she concluded that his character in these contributions, however significant they might be, were at best a neutral factor in sentencing.
Neutral. So no discount for past good deeds.
Basically, yes. They provided no basis for reducing the sentence itself. The decision hinged on the offense and the medical condition.
That's quite clear then. What about his travel? There was some discussion about him taking overseas trips recently. Some might ask, well, if he's well enough to travel, why not well enough for prison?
That point was addressed. The judge looked at 2 specific trips he took, one in late 2024 and another around April-May 2025.
And what was the finding?
She noted these trips were very carefully managed. They use private aviation specifically to minimize health risks, particularly infection risks, which is very different from commercial travel or a prison environment.
Okay.
And the second trip actually involved several stops, specifically so he could consult with a medical professor in the U.S. The judge saw this as further evidence of his medical fragility, actually.
So the travel didn't suggest he was robust.
Quite the opposite, in the judge's view. And she made a key clarification. The court's concern isn't whether someone can afford special arrangements, like private jets or top-tier health care. The legal question is whether imprisonment itself, the standard custodial environment, would pose heightened life-threatening risks to that specific individual given their documented medical state. It's about the inherent risks of prison life for someone that unwell.
That makes sense. It's not about comparing luxury travel to prison, but about the fundamental safety risks within the prison system for him.
Precisely.
Okay, so wrapping this all up, it's quite a case. We see the maximum fine imposed, $30,000, but the defining factor preventing jail time was this principle of judicial mercy, triggered by his severe and undisputed health conditions.
Yeah, I think the key takeaway is really how judicial mercy operates in these exceptional circumstances. It highlights that while the offense itself was serious, warranting jail time in normal circumstances, the courts weigh the real, immediate, life-threatening risks that imprisonment would pose when the medical evidence is clear, agreed upon, and severe.
It shows a certain, perhaps necessary, flexibility or humanity within the justice system when faced with such extreme health situations.
It does. It underscores that the system has to balance accountability with the stark reality of an offender's potential inability to survive a custodial sentence. It's a complex balancing act.
It certainly gives you a lot to think about, doesn't it? How do serious illnesses intersect with the legal system? What responsibility do courts have, if any, to balance justice with, well, humane considerations in these kinds of truly exceptional cases? Definitely something to mull over.
A difficult question with no easy answers.
Indeed. Well, thank you for joining us on Singapore Property Talk Law for this deep dive. We really hope you found it insightful.
Hope it was helpful.
And don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll catch you next time.